We should move to the United States now, where outrage, we've all seen it, over anti-immigration raids in places like Minnesota have prompted the Democrats to ramp up efforts to shut down the government. That, despite an offer from Donald Trump's border czar to reduce the number of enforcement officers in Minneapolis and to conduct targeted operations following an outcry over the deaths of 2 protesters. Well, speaking at the first cabinet of the year, Mr. Trump said he hopes that the shutdown can be avoided.
I think we're going to have an amazing and incredible year. Hopefully we won't have a shutdown. And we're working on that right now. I think we're getting close. The Democrats, I don't believe, want to see it either. So we'll work in a very bipartisan way, I believe, not to have a shutdown. We don't want a shutdown.
Well, let's bring in our US correspondent, David Blevins. And is this, David, Democrats expressing their deep concern over those immigration enforcement operations? And what are they trying to do about it? And how damaging would a shutdown be?
Yes, it is absolutely that, Anna. They will be burning the midnight oil on Capitol Hill in a bid to strike some kind of compromise. Remember, a government shutdown happens when Congress fails to agree a budget. The last one was a record breaker. It lasted 43 days. In the autumn, 1.4 million federal workers were either furloughed or had to work without pay. And it only ended when there was a short-term agreement. That short-term agreement comes to an end at midnight Friday into Saturday. That's why we are on the brink of another shutdown. The Democrats say they will not agree to fund the Department of Homeland Security this time around unless there are major changes to how ICE agents operate on the ground. Masks off, cameras on. That's how Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is framing their demands. The last one was a full shutdown because every federal agency was affected. This time it would only be a partial shutdown. Half of them have now received funding for up to a year. But one of the departments that could be affected, wait for it, is the Department of War. Consider that in the context of Donald Trump threatening to strike Iran. Imagine being on board the Abraham Lincoln, steaming towards Iran and discovering you're not getting paid anymore.
David, for the moment, thanks very much indeed. And I know we are expecting to hear from Mr. Trump, running late, as is often the case, due to speak about a drugs initiative, which he is calling the White House Great American Recovery Initiative, talking about drug addiction. So we will see, certainly, if we dip into that. But let's stay with the immigration issue. It is the killing by immigration officials of protester Alex Pretty in Minnesota, which has fuelled the outrage over this issue. But overnight, video emerged of him clashing with immigration agents more than a week before he was fatally shot. Our US correspondent Martha Kellner has more.
This newly released video was filmed 11 days before Alex Pretty was shot dead by federal immigration officers. It shows a separate incident, a separate altercation with immigration officers elsewhere in the city. Pretty is clearly agitated. He goes around the side of a vehicle which is parked in the middle of an intersection. It's being used by immigration officers. He seems to spit towards that car. He then walks around the back of the vehicle, and as it's pulling away, he kicks the tail light so hard, in fact, that the casing of that tail light comes off. He then walks away. There is a tussle with one of those officers. He ends up being tackled to the ground. That officer retreats. At some point, Alex Pretty's coat comes off, and you can see visible what appears to be a gun just above his waistband. He was obviously carrying a gun at the time that he was shot dead, although it does appear that he was disarmed at the time that the fatal shots were fired. But this separate incident, during this incident, immigration agents fire tear gas and pepper bullets into the crowd. It then calms down. It doesn't seem like Alex Pretty was arrested or that there was any further interaction with immigration agents during that incident.
Martha, the response to that video has been polarising. Here is what the lawyer for the Pretty family had to say about it. A week before Alex was gunned down in the street, despite posing no threat to anyone, he was violently assaulted by a group of ICE agents. Nothing that happened a full week before could possibly have justified Alex's killing at the hands of ICE on January the 24th. Well, tonight, Donald Trump posted that video juxtaposed with the well-known Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren. Take a look at this.
Caring for people was at the core of who he was. He was incapable of causing harm. Alex carried patience, compassion, and calm as a steady light within him. Even at the very end, that light was there. I recognized his familiar stillness and signature calm composure.
And Michelle, Donald Trump sends his borders to Minnesota. He has a series of meetings. He does a news conference this morning. He talks about a drawdown, pulling back officers from ICE, talking only about targeted operations, not random operations. But then Trump flams the situation once again with that superimposed video.
Yeah, and I don't think that materially is going to change anything or dampen the outrage, really, that people are feeling. Of course, it illuminates the picture and shows that this was an individual that was obviously regularly protesting and regularly armed, but it doesn't change the fact that he was shot several times, 10 times, I believe, without real just cause, as we're led to believe. So I think that the anger and sentiment is still going to continue to bubble. And when we look at some of the things that the Democrats are asking for, they don't seem unreasonable. Things like making sure that ICE agents don't wear face masks, they have body cams, which is also in their interest too, for stories like this, that they declare who they are. You know, these seems like straightforward, common sense initiatives that would be in everybody's interest and make the whole process a little bit more transparent.
Yes, except that earlier this week there were reports that if they were asked to not wear their face masks, many of them would quit the job. And obviously, you know, today we heard from the border czar, we are not surrendering this operation. So where does it leave it? The people of Minnesota want them out, you know, not wearing face masks, you know, not without their face masks, just gone.
Well, this is really tearing America apart at the moment. And, you know, I've got friends in America who are literally scared to go out of their homes, particularly if they are of colour, because the stories that are coming out, I mean, it feels like these ICE agents, the vetting is very poor. We don't know who they are. The face covering is to kind of, you know, hide them. It does feel like they're sort of thugs or kind of Proud Boys that are going out and just pick. I mean, there were stories over the last couple of weeks about children, very tiny children being detained and flown to Texas. I mean, it feels like absolutely control immigration, and that is what Donald Trump ran on, and a lot of citizens did support him on this. But this is out of control thuggery. This feels like these people are completely unaccountable. They're out of control. And yes, look, that footage is not great of that guy attacking the car, but that does not justify, as Michelle and others have said, you know, getting shot, you know, 10 times. And we've seen the footage of the mother who was shot as well. But I think this is having such a big effect in America now. We know that the shutdown, and it's affecting kind of the business of politics. I think it's going to affect people going to America. I think lots of people are like, I don't want to go there, I don't want to take my kids there when it feels so dangerous at the moment. I think this is making Donald Trump, well, I hope it's making him, but I think it's making others think again.
Yes, I mean, I think the visitor numbers have fallen off a cliff, haven't they? This prospect of a shutdown, you know, there are questions now about the dollar, the gold's been going up, it fell sharply again. You know, there's a jitteriness now, isn't there, that's coming from this policy and the broader implications if there is another US, or at least a partial shutdown in America.
Yeah, and I think there's probably a jitteriness from Donald Trump's inner team as well, because his polling is taking a big hit. And there was a poll out, I think it was yesterday, where people were saying whether they thought it was Donald Trump's fault or the ICE agents' fault. And they were actually blaming Donald Trump more personally. So he's getting the blame. And this could really be a turning point in his presidency. Of course, so he was elected to tackle immigration, and this is putting a big dampener on the great work that he has done to drive it down and to really address the issue around criminality and the link with immigration. But now this overreach and overstep, if you like, is tainting it.
Yes, and immigration's a big issue in this country too. Just briefly, you know, what implications are there for any incoming party and how they might want to tackle
Well, I think there's big lessons, and you have seen a lot of parties on the right kind of really kind of cozy up to Donald Trump and kind of praise this ICE thing and say, oh, we want to bring some sort of ICE to Britain. I think people will be looking at these appalling scenes from America and thinking, absolutely no way. Yes, we want to tackle immigration, but we are not a country that wants to bring that kind of violence and thuggery and racism to our shores.
So I completely disagree here, and I think this is the biggest danger for the UK, what's happening in the US, because it's like comparing chalk and cheese. Our situation is completely incomparable, and we shouldn't let this deter us from fighting immigration. It is the biggest issue that the British public care about. It is an issue that both my previous government and this government have failed to address, and we cannot continue to fail to address it.
But I think you can absolutely should address it. But the idea of ICE coming here in terms of, you know, masked people going around, you know, somebody like me who's a Muslim and of colour, my brother, my family, you know, people being dragged off the street, that is not what this country's up for.
But that's why I'm saying you can't compare the two, because there is a danger that by sentiments like what you've just expressed, that we go the other way,
but we have
and that
had
people are over-cautious.
We have had politicians who have said we would like to. I mean, Kemi Badenoch said I'd like to look at introducing a nice thing. Nigel Farage has talked about doing that. I think nobody has got a problem. Certainly, I don't have a problem, and certainly this Labour government, Shabana Mahmood, is very, very tough on immigration. Cracking down on illegal immigration is really important. The idea that you would import this kind of behaviour, absolutely not.
OK, yeah, one quick sentence need to go.
But tough on immigration actually requires illegal immigration to be coming down, which it isn't. And you can look at what's happening in the rest of the world and take best practice, but scale it and put guardrails. That's very different. What I'm saying is that we cannot go the other direction and be too afraid to do anything.
No one is talking about, and actually we're getting to the point where migration figures are going down so much we might actually hit net zero migration.
But not illegal immigration.
Sure, and illegal,
is the big thing.
Absolutely, and illegal immigration is a massive problem. But the idea that you would bring in these kind of thugs to sort of pick people off the street without any documentation, absolutely not.